So I'm sitting here with Jason Neumann here at Remax Kelowna. We are fellow realtors in this office. Jason and his family have lived in the beautiful city of Kelowna for 15 years now, and he sells real estate locally. His focus is lifestyle, recreational, and new home sales. Jason absolutely believes in putting his clients' needs and wants at the forefront of everything that he does. Jason has an extensive background in the construction industry. So today I want to talk to Jason about his experience as a realtor here in Kelowna, and in particular, some of the regulatory changes all of us as realtors are facing right now.
Thanks, Luke. First of all, thanks so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you chose me to be part of your show. In terms of my upbringing, I grew up in the Lower Mainland. I was born in New Westminster, moved around a little bit, but ultimately settled in Abbotsford. Lived there nearly 30 years. Relocated to the Okanagan about 15 years ago. Ironically, I moved up to do recreational sales at Big White Ski Resort. So I worked with a relative there and did a lot of new construction marketing with my relative up there. Lived on the hill for 2 years, got paroled, as I call it, and then moved down to Kelowna. So 15 years in the Okanagan, 13 years here in Kelowna. Been a real estate agent essentially ever since I moved up here. As you had already mentioned, my background is nearly 30 years in construction. Going back into the 80s, my parents used to build bare land strata complexes and multifamily buildings and such. So I've done everything from, doing the forms to handing over keys to clients. As you mentioned, I also had run a lumber yard, which I really enjoyed doing. Then I built roof trusses for a couple of years. Moved into the engineering department where I was a liaison between the guys that built the trusses and the engineering department, did shipping, receiving. So I've kind of done a little bit of stuff over the years here.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but do you remember the time when you first realized you're going to be a real estate salesperson and kind of get out of the construction business?
Yeah, absolutely. So ironically, when I was living in Abbotsford and I was working at the truss manufacturing company, our principal owner, his name was Ken, had suggested to me, he says, Jason, you've done a lot of different things here, but your true gifting is networking, and your true gifting is in the ability to relate to people. Mm-hmm. You should really consider real estate. And that really kind of set a bit of a bug in my ear, if you will, and gave me a bit of a fire. And it's something that I learned about myself. I love working with people. The idea of taking somebody from no market knowledge to giving them the keys to their home, that whole process excites me. I think it's so amazing that somebody puts their trust in you and says, hey, can you help walk me through the steps of what a home buying process will look like? And to be honest with you, I have a real affinity, if you will, a natural draw to first-time home buyers. There's just something about that nervous energy that I just adore and love. I have a funny story. One time I was showing a home, and it was a 7-8-year-old boy, and he makes this major statement to his mom and dad, which is, "This room is perfect for my Hot Wheels track."
Right.
So he was, essentially saying to mom and dad, I want this house. And, those are the stories that I love, because it just shows you just the human aspect and the emotions that people have when it comes to home ownership. And I just thrive. I just love that stuff. I really, really do.
That's awesome. Jason, I think but I'm a huge fan of personal transformation stories. And how did a person get from here to there? I'm assuming you're not the exact same person you were 20 years ago. Do you have a story from your past that if someone just met you today and they heard this story, they'd have a hard time almost believing that was you? Something that has changed significantly in your way of thinking, your way of acting, and a story that highlights that.
Absolutely. when I was, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit of background story here to lead up to the thing you want me to share. So I was married for 13 years, separated, and then divorced after 15 total years of marriage. Had 3 kids, and, unfortunately, you never plan for divorce, but it does happen. During my married life, I didn't realize that my self-worth, the way that I looked at myself, the way that I treated myself in terms of my mind, body, and spirit, I just kind of let it go to the wayside, and I lost myself in the marriage to the point where I remember when all was said and done, even thinking, like, what's my favorite color? I was just so lost. So I've been divorced approximately 6 years now, thereabouts. And I can tell you the biggest transformation that I had was realizing that I was significantly overweight. Wow. And I didn't know it at the time, but I would go into meetings or I would be out for a lunch and I'd be sweating profusely all the time. And I just thought, oh, well, that's just the natural state of the way I am. And a big part of being in real estate is, we're go, go, go all the time. So an average day for me would look like I would get out of bed, I'd quickly run the kids to school, get them all sorted out, like making the lunches and do all that stuff, get them to school, as I mentioned. And then I'd grab a coffee, and then I'd go do showings and meetings and everything. Oops, I missed lunch. Now all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock. Now I'm hangry, so I got a headache, low blood sugar, all that stuff, and it's 2 hours till dinner. So what do? We might as well wait the 2 hours till dinner. So then I'd go to have dinner, but I wouldn't just have a plate because I'd basically been essentially starving my body all day. Mm-hmm. I'd have 2 massive, sometimes 3 massive helpings of dinner, and then I'd snack all night, and I would just repeat this process over again. So what I didn't realize was I had essentially trained my body to gorge itself and to store fat because it didn't know when it was going to eat again. Mm-hmm. So my paradigm shift very quickly was I started to eat breakfast. And then I would just have a small, modest lunch, and then just have a normal helping at dinner time. And believe it or not, as shocking as it is to me still when I say this, I've lost 60 pounds. Wow. I don't sweat. If I sweat, it's because I'm exercising. Right. I've really, my major paradigm shift is I started to think about me. And not in a selfish way, not in a life is all about me and gimme, gimme, gimme. Much more in, Jason, if you don't take care of certain aspects in your life, things are not going to go well. So the physical was definitely part of it. The mental was a tough one because being through divorce and having 3 kids and watching the negative effects that it can have on them was really hard. Mm-hmm. So I had to make peace with that. And I had to realize what are the changes that I'm making in my life that I've also made for my children's life. So essentially getting my house in order. And then lastly was spiritual. From a spiritual side of things, I had moved away from concerning myself with anything faith-based and just really kind of isolated myself. Mm-hmm. I'm sure some of your listeners can relate to this, but when you go through a traumatic time like that, divorce is very much like a death. Mm-hmm. It's an emotional death. Yeah. You're connected with that person on every level, and when that goes away, it's hard. And so that's what I had to do. I had to reconcile in my mind, how am I going to change and do right by myself? So all of those things culminated together, resulted in me having more energy for my kids, being able to go to events and not sit there and sweat profusely. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about paradigm shifts. My son would practice hockey here locally at Prospera Place. And while he was practicing, I ran every last set of stairs in Prospera Place. I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of stairs it is, wow. But I would do that while he's practicing because the state of mind is I can sit in a seat and chat for an hour, which would be good. I mean, it's good to relate to people. Or I can take that opportunity and I can exercise and I can do something positive for me. And so it's just, I just find that everything just falls into alignment. Mm-hmm. And that's what was so drastically missing in my life. Yeah. So it wasn't just about the weight loss. The weight loss was the physical appearance to others. But others have also noticed I'm a much more happier, much more calm person. I wasn't always that way. Sometimes I would find myself to be over the top, very frustrated, and that's really tough to be motivated in the morning when you're feeling all these outside stresses, if you will.
Well, that is a surprising story because I've known you for a couple of years, and you're a laid-back guy, very slim, very positive. So I think probably the low blood sugar in the diet affected your moods as well, not just your weight. But thank you for sharing that story. I did not know that about you. So if you could go in a time machine and advise your younger self, you saw a younger version of yourself acting this way, skipping meals, gorging yourself, what would you tell your younger self?
Don't be so stupid. In all seriousness, I would tell my younger self, it's okay to take care of oneself. It's okay to do things that you enjoy doing. You don't have to feel guilt. As a parent, and again, I'm sure your listeners can relate to this, when you are a parent, you sometimes just say, well, no, I don't have time for me. I'm going to do everything for my kids. And that is good and that is noble. But that well can run dry. And then your kids look at you and say, well, you don't have energy, or we're not doing stuff together because you're just burnt out. So you've got to also do things that I term are life-giving, that bring positive feelings and emotions into your life, and that you get excited about when you wake up in the morning. So sometimes when I get stressed, I'll just go to a local driving range and I'll whack the crap out of a bucket of balls.
Right.
Just to get whatever I'm feeling inside out, to take stress relief, and I walk away from there and I feel like $1 million. I just feel really good because it's intention. I think that's the biggest thing. My intention when I was overweight was just to get through the day. So it's survival mode. My intention today is to take care of myself so that I do have the best version of myself for others, as in my clients, most importantly my kids, my friends, my family. I always want to be the best version of myself. And the only way to do that is to start out every single day with intention to say, I'm going to do these positive things so that I have positive income. So it was a bit of a vicious cycle there when I didn't really have a lot of hope. I think that's probably a big part of it. I felt very lost. I felt very vanilla. And I don't want to be vanilla. I want to be, a little bit of spice. I want to be a little bit of salt, flavor, if you will, in life. And, I have, now we're getting real personal here. I have a real genuine love for the lost. I don't know what it is, but there's just something in me that says I need to, sorry.
Do you mean people who have passed away?
No, the lost, the people like me who, they've given up.
I see.
They don't know what is wrong. They just know that something's wrong, and they don't know how to go about doing it. So, crazy example, last night I was out at one of our brand new eateries, which, by the way, I'm a total foodie. So if you ever want to know anything to do with Kelowna and food, feel free to call or text me anytime, because trust me, I've been there and I've eaten there.
Awesome.
But anyway, I had a friend of mine that took me to the side, and she was sharing some real personal hurt, some things that she was going through. And kind of midway through, she would say, I don't even know why I'm telling you all this stuff. And in my mind, I know why, because I think I'm one of these individuals that when you meet me, you realize, hey, I can trust this guy. I can talk to him about things. And that's what I mean by I have a real heart for the lost. I'm not talking like people that are geographically lost. Right. I'm talking they've lost their direction in their life. Right. And they're hurting and they're in pain. I've walked a mile in a lot of different types of shoes. And I've gone from a very sympathetic person to a very empathetic person in my life. So
you are a successful realtor, 15 years now, much more empathetic person than you were when you were younger, much better physical shape. Was it all, when you decided to make that change and you changed your intention, was it all smooth sailing for the last 15 years? Or did you have any setbacks? And maybe talk a little bit about setbacks, how you deal with them. So if someone has decided to change their intention and their course in life, they're going to have setbacks, right? How do you deal with those? How do you get past them?
Two answers to that. There's the personal side, and then there's the business side. From the personal side, where I've had setbacks, and oh boy, I'm being very vulnerable and honest here. There are days where I do an exchange with my ex-wife, and I will go home and I will slump down in my chair. I call it the captain's chair, and I'll cry because I really feel that, look what I've done, the negative harm, all those things that I've done to my children. And I know that that's negative energy, and I know that, the kids tell me all the time they're so much happier. They're very happy for me. I think they're happier with their mom. Just everything is better. So the battle there is to forgive myself and to say the decision that I made might, on the onset, have some consequences. But long term, it was the best thing that I could have done for myself and for my kids. So that can be a battle sometimes. I'm not going to beat around the bush. There are days where I'm like, man, oh man, that is really hard to swallow that. I might have brought that kind of thing to them. And then beyond that, obviously, there are times when it comes to eating where, because I am a foodie, I want to go out all the time and eat, and that's just not realistic. So I've got to be intentional and say, no, your breakfast is at home. Right. Or you're going to have lunch, but not out. You're going to have it at the office. Maybe go out for dinner. But you can't do that all the time. You can't go out and eat all the time because, food is, it can become a coping mechanism. And that I don't want to allow. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't go to the gym every day. I really need to. But one of the things that I try to do is exercise at home and be, again, intentional with that. From a business standpoint, when it comes to real estate, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Luke, but at the end of the day, real estate can be a very, very challenging job. We have, as organized real estate, the most amazing role in somebody's life to help them win in a multiple offer situation or achieve the dream of home ownership. But sometimes that doesn't always work out. And when it does, it's almost impossible at times not to take that personally. And part of the challenge as a real estate agent, and to be a good real estate agent, is learning how to deal with the ebb and flow, the highs and the lows. So as an example for your listeners, for highs is, it just seems that no matter what deal you're writing an offer on and presenting, everything's just clicking. It's like cogs in a wheel. Everything is just coming together, and you're like, my goodness, like this job is amazing. It's so easy. But then you go on a run where it just doesn't matter what you do. It seems like you're fighting an uphill battle. Offers are not working out, or, home inspection goes sideways, whatever it is. And it's like, can't anything go right for me, right? So sometimes it feels very cruel and unforgiving. We have these really extreme bookends in our business. But an agent worth their salt is the one that is able to take those emotions and put them to the side and to stay the course, see the direction, and achieve the goal. Not letting the clients take on extra stress, but taking it away and saying, hey, I'm here every step of the way. I'm going to help you stick handle through some of these issues. We're going to pull those emotions away because we want you to achieve your dream. Now, sometimes, and I've done this before, and my managing brokers would shoot me if they hear this, but I don't care. I'm going to still say it. There are times where I have talked to buyers where I've advised them, I think we're off where we need to be. And what I mean by that is they say, well, we want this kind of house, and these are the sorts of things that are really important to us. But the house that they want to write on is nowhere near close. So then I have to ask them, well, have we had a paradigm shift in our thinking? Or are we feeling like we just need to offer on something? So I've actually convinced clients in a positive way, I think we're not being true to who we are and what we need to do. And they haven't proceeded with that offer any further. Or they've gone and said, no, you're right, Jason, we shouldn't write on this one because we do need a 2-car garage. Why are we looking at something with a carport? So it's those kinds of things. I think, my opinion is this: the buying public wants transparency. They want to know that we're a conduit and not a filter. That anything and everything that we know about a house, a neighborhood, whatever it is, we're just telling them. And we don't pretend for a second that we know what is or is not important to them. We give them the information and they make those decisions. So bringing the wagons around, if you will, part of the challenge in real estate is working with those super highs and then the lows. Some of the lows even where really good people who you just adore because they're just genuine, good-natured people, and they get denied a mortgage. And the pain and the frustration that you see them go through when they're like, oh, we have to wait another year or maybe 2 years for part of our credit to be repaired or whatever it is, a bigger down payment for them to be able to go back out and to do this. Those are really hard conversations to have, and those can take it out of you. So, again, going back to my commentary, ebb and flow, your highs are your highs, your lows are your lows. So, yeah, that's something I've definitely had to learn how to have balance. And then, of course, I'm still a single dad of 3. So one of my other challenges is coming home and saying, I've kind of had a bit of a crappy day. That's not my kid's problem.
Right.
My kids need the best version of Jason Neumann.
Yeah.
So I gotta take the realtor hat off. The dad hat goes on. And let's do this, kids. Let's go out and have fun. I always like to tell the kids, okay, daddy's home. Let's party. So what are we going to do? So that's kind of our fun way of kicking off an evening together.
How old are your kids now?
Okay, so I have the 15-year-old teenager. You can feel sorry for me now.
We've got one.
Yeah, I've got the 12-year-old, so the tween.
Yeah.
He's my ginger. And then I've got the 8-year-old princess. And I'm not going to lie to you, she owns me. What she wants, she gets. I'm just going to say it the way it is.
Be careful with that. In 7 years, we'll have a conversation about that. That could bite you, as you know from experience. So I want to get back to real estate in a minute. But first, Jason, you were on a TV show about a year ago, I think. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So about a year ago, last July, CBC came out and filmed my apparently interesting life. I don't know about that, but with myself and my kids. And how it all came to be, it was very interesting. My sister, bless her heart, was on, I think, Facebook, and she saw this thing for, are you 50 plus and single with kids? We want to hear from you. So she wrote the producers of the show, Frantic Films, and says, I have a brother. He's in his mid-40s. Would that be something of interest to you? And they wrote her back immediately and said, yeah, we would really love it. So anyway, funny thing, when we finished doing the whole shoot, I took the whole film crew and everybody out for dinner, and the executive producer of the show said to me, Jason, one of the reasons we chose you was during your Skype interview, we asked you a very simple question, which is, what's the dating scene like in Kelowna? And your response was brutal. So because of that, apparently they thought I was like their guy. But it was really cool. And I'll tell you, the reason I did the show, it was called Stats of Life. And my segment was on dating. So they wanted to show Canadians, like a single dad of 3. They had a single gal from Vancouver Island, and then they had a couple from back east. So just different kind of dynamics and demographics there. And, they came out to Kelowna. They filmed my life for 5 days. They set me up on a blind date. It was a lot of fun. It was at a local winery here at Summerhill Winery. We had a private wine tasting. I got to savor sparkling wine. You can't call it champagne because apparently it's not from France, so there's all these rules or whatever. And it was just a lot of fun. It was a really good date. I really enjoyed it. And the idea was they wanted just to see what my life looked like. But I did it for my kids because I wanted my kids to be able to say they were on national television. So, they filmed us at a beach. We went up to Davison Orchard in Vernon, and it was just a lot of fun. I learned a lot about myself because, obviously you're mic'd at all times. And it was cool because the guy that did all of that did The Amazing Race in both Canada and the U.S. So it was cool talking to him off camera, the stories that he had and all that other stuff. But amazing. Those microphones are so sensitive that a little belch go underneath my breath, and he points to me and goes, "Heard it."
That's crazy.
So you're totally exposed. I'm like, if I ever go to the washroom, that thing's not on, right? He's like, "Oh no, I promise you." But I don't know. I mean, I'm in a trusting position.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun, and as I say, I learned a lot about myself as a single person and what it is. And the interesting thing is, I'm not about online dating. I don't buy into that. I don't like the swiping left or right business. I think it's very, I don't know. I just, for me personally, I felt very convicted. I felt like I was judging strictly based on a photo. Well, if I don't read every bio, how do you know?
Right.
But who has time to read thousands of bios? Like, it's just insane. I'm just very old school. I'm cut from the old cloth of, I'm looking for that warm lead, meaning somebody that knows somebody that thinks, oh yeah, I think you guys might be a good fit.
Right.
That's the way I've always done my dating life, and I tried online dating, and I just did not enjoy it. I just felt like I was a fish out of water. It was very uncomfortable for me.
Right.
And I like to consider myself somewhat social, so it was really hard to do online dating, and I just didn't feel that there was a connectivity to it. I'm more of a meat and potatoes kind of guy, and meet you in person kind of thing. So
yeah, well, I can totally relate to that, and I like what you said about warm leads, because I'm the same way with real estate. I don't like to bother people when they're having dinner, and I don't like cold calling, and I don't like knocking on people's houses unless I'm doing it for a charity thing. Like we're gonna go door to door with our kids this fall and try to get groceries for the food drive. And we're going to have a branded grocery bag, leave it with the homeowner for a week, and then come back and pick it up. So they'll have to see my logo and a little illustration of my face and my cell phone number for a week. But we're doing something positive. So I kind of view it the same way as I view dating. Like, I don't want to do cold calling, right? I want to meet people in person. And if we get to talking about that, great. The new rules that have just come into effect make this operation a little more complicated. I'm totally happy to be transparent with my clients or new prospects, and I think it is important. And I do think that there are a handful of bad apples out there that gave us a bad reputation by not being really clear about their conflicts of interest and their intentions in talking to people, and I think transparency is a good thing. My concern is that I have a hard time getting people to read contracts today as they are, because they're so wordy, and they're extremely important, so I make people read them. But it's hard to get people. Most of the time, people are like, I've made a decision, show me where to sign. And I just think that having extra paperwork is going to make this even harder. Most people do not want to deal with paperwork. So what do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to go back to your commentary about real estate and dating. There are so many parallels and correlations there. It's ridiculous. We could spend hours on that topic, but I just thought I would throw that in there for the mix. You know, the reality is, going back to what you said a couple of moments ago, is you get a few bad apples and it has a negative ripple effect on the industry. We are now the only province in all of Canada that does not allow what we term in our business double ending, or representation of both a buyer and seller. You know, I've only done a handful of deals in almost 14, 15 years of doing this business. So really, from that point of view, it didn't have a dramatic effect on me. But there are a lot of people in our industry that was kind of bread and butter. I understand the optics of it, and it's in what the council says is in the best interest of the public. It is more paperwork. There's no two ways about it. The reality is, I don't know why anybody would not want to have an agency relationship with a real estate agent as opposed to being unrepresented. unrepresented, you get nothing. You look at the realtor, and the realtor is just an order taker. I mean, well, then what's the point of having a realtor if all you're doing is, do this, do that? And the realtor, on the other hand, can't give any advice, right? Once a client has said, no, I want unrepresented relationship with you, all you can do is give them material facts about a property that they already have access to, and that sort of stuff. And the reality is that's not a positive thing for the public. So, I mean, I don't push a position on that, but I simply say to people, listen, at the end of the day, you want to be able to ask me questions like, are there good schools nearby? Can you tell me what the market trends are for this area? What's the walk score? Like things that are, very important for a potential purchaser.
Right.
They should have representation. So I now, based on these new rules, just like you are, Luke, we now have to give these options to the general public, which they were more than aware of before, but now it's more black and white. But at the end of the day, I don't know why somebody who's looking to purchase a home wouldn't want representation and having somebody in their corner, per se.
I did quite a few double deals, and I think the reason is because I would design my ads with the buyer in mind, to appeal to that buyer. And especially with mobile homes, I find the public in that price segment tends to respond to ads more, and they don't always have a realtor. So I would typically put a person in the customer position, not a dual agency, because I think it's problematic anyways. But I still felt it was okay for me to tell them, do you want to have an inspection? We should include this clause. Not telling them what price to offer or, anything confidential from the seller, but still trying to make the deal happen and say, listen, you should probably have a financing clause. You'll want your lawyer to review the title, right? Giving them advice, but I don't think advice that conflicted with my seller, But we can't even do that now. We can't even tell them what clauses to include. So, like you said, it would be almost crazy to not get your own realtor now if you're buying public and you're in that situation. So in a way, it's a good thing, because it's going to give more opportunities for realtors to be buyer's agents now. We're going to have to refer those people out.
Yeah, and I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. Real estate has changes. I mean, that's just a given. And some of them will be, positive. Others will be a challenge. And we're just going to forge through it and see it through.
So I want to put you on the spot now. Can you name one person in Kelowna that you find to be a fascinating person and that you would like to see come on this show in the future?
Absolutely. One of my absolute favorite people in Kelowna is Karen Mason from the Kelowna Women's Shelter. Okay. I think she is doing such an amazing thing for this town. Without getting into too many details, obviously there's some horrific examples of things that happen to women through, battered relationships and whatnot. And Karen is a bright, shining light in this town. She has a heart of gold, and I have just the utmost respect for her. So you need to get her on your show.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jason. I want to thank you again for your time today and for coming on the show. We've got to know you a little bit better on a personal level. What is the best way for someone to reach you if they want to talk about real estate or maybe just become a friend?
Call or text me on my cell phone number, 250-808-7700. Would love to hear from you. And Luke, thank you again very much for having me on your show. Much appreciated.